In this demonstration, we're going to examine looping constructs, specifically the for and the while loop construct. On line 9, we've created a for loop using the variable I as the loop control variable. We've initialized the value of I to 0, and our test condition is whether the value of I is less than 10. And we're saying each time through the loop, increment the value of I by 1, so that the loop construct itself controls the incrementation of the loop control variable. Inside of the loop, we would do something interesting, but for this example, what we've done is created an if statement, and we're testing the value of the loop control variable I. And we're saying whenever I is equal to 2, execute the code block following this if statement. And within this code block, we're printing a message, and then we're breaking out of the loop. So we're terminating the loop execution. So long as the value is not equal to 2, we'll execute line 17. On line 21, we've created another for loop using, again, the variable I, initialized to 0, with a test condition that I is less than 10, and that I will be incremented by 1 each time through the loop. Again, the loop control variable is incremented automatically for us by the looping construct. Inside of the loop, on line 24, we have an if statement. Again, we're testing the loop control variable I, and when its value is equal to 2, we're going to print a statement and then continue the loop. So we're not leaving the loop, we're simply skipping this iteration of the loop. So when line 27 is executed, execution will jump back to line 21, and line 29 will never be executed when I is equal to 2. Otherwise, line 29 will be executed. Now, in contrast to the for construct, we've created a while construct. And notice the difference here. In the for construct, we create, initialize, test, and increment our loop control variable in the same line of code within the same statement. For a while construct, we have to create and initialize our loop control variable. The test is done within the while statement. So in this case, we're creating a variable j and initializing its value to 0. We're testing that value as the control of the while loop, and then on line 42, we're incrementing the value of j to control the loop. And when j reaches the value of 10, the loop will terminate. Inside of the loop, we're testing the value of j. When it equals 2, we will execute the code within this code block and break out of the loop. Otherwise, we'll execute line 41. So the key here is in a for statement, the creation and initialization of the loop control variable, the test of the loop control variable, and the incrementation of the loop control variable is all in one line of code. In the while loop, we have 3 lines of code to do the same thing. Functionally, these loops do exactly the same thing. They execute exactly the same way. So the difference is in style, and that difference sometimes can bite us, and we're going to see that in a moment. So let's execute this. And so in our first loop, we said loop through this code from 0 to 10, but when the value of the loop control variable I is equal to 2, print this statement and break out of the loop. And so that's exactly what we did in the first loop. In the second loop, we said loop through this code while the value of I is less than 10, but when the value of I is equal to 2, skip this number. We're going to print this output and we're going to continue the loop. So line 29, in the case of I equals 2, will never be executed. But then we'll go to 3 and 4 and so on. And so when we see the second loop executed, we see that we skipped the number 2, but we printed the other values in the loop. And likewise with the while statement, when we initialize to 0 and we say as long as the loop control variable is less than 10, execute this code. Within the code, we're testing for the value of 2, and when this expression evaluates to true, we're going to break out of the loop, and that's exactly what we did here for the third loop, the while construct. But here's the issue with the while, that you must remember to terminate the loop, to control the loop variable so that the loop at some point terminates. So let's imagine that we forget to increment the value of the loop control variable. So we're going to comment out the incrementation of the j variable so that the value will always be less than 10. We just simply forgot. It's a while loop. This happens. So when we execute this now, notice that we are stuck in the loop. We are continuing to transfer data from the local host because this is simply spinning now. Spinning, spinning, spinning. So notice that we're not getting any reaction from the server because it is stuck in this, what is referred to an infinite loop, because it will never terminate. The termination condition will never be set because we forgot to increment the loop control variable. This is a common error, and so stylistically you need to choose whether to use a for loop or a while loop. Functionally they're identical, but you can see that there are traps with the while loop that you may want to avoid.